So after playing the Diablo 4 server slam, you can color me impressed, you can color me happy, you can color me excited. Diablo 4 beta left me wanting to play more. I happened to test out both the sorcerer class and the rogue class, maxing them both to level 20. And it's safe to say that this game has a lot of potential and a lot of fun to be had. Obviously, when you start the game off, you do get your cutscenes, which, Blizzard cutscenes have always delivered, and Diablo 4 is no exception. And then, of course, you would go on to create your character, which the character creator here isn't the most in-depth creator I've seen, but it's definitely not bad. It's serviceable for what matters, because at the end of the day, after you create your character, you're going to load it up with gear anyways, and then obviously it'll always look differently. The big elephant in the room is the battle pass and how certain cosmetic items are only going to be exclusive to the battle pass, which means many people can look the same because people just spent money instead of grinding for specific gear. So there is elements of that is a concern for some. If you care for the battle pass, I personally don't. I play Diablo for the story and how fun the game can be. That being said, however, the one thing I will say about Diablo 4 is that it seems like they took the best parts of Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 and put them together. And what I mean by that is, from Diablo 2, the skill tree system, although it's not 3 tabs as it is in Diablo 2, it is more like a skill, like a grid, where you go through the grid and you choose the upgrades you want. But it's more in line with Diablo 2 than it is Diablo 3. Diablo 3, you would unlock a skill, then unlock a rune, and then equip a rune. Here, you actually have skill points. You have to allocate them to make your builds more in line with what Diablo 2 has to offer. What I also find the resemblance towards Diablo 2 is also the atmosphere. The game is more darker and less colorful, where Diablo 3 was the opposite of this. So it does pay homage to that dark, evil, gritty aesthetic that you would come to expect. So again, I like that from Diablo 2. Where the game is like Diablo 3 comes in the form of its core gameplay. For example, you don't have to manage potions in your inventory like you would in Diablo 2. That's more like Diablo 3. You also don't have to equip a skill and then use a skill. Yes, you can hotkey that in Diablo 2, but it's 2 key presses versus 1 key press. And if you're doing it really quickly, in Diablo 2, it was very easy to miss tap the keys and then not get the appropriate skill that you wanted when you wanted it. That being said, so the gameplay, the combat of the game is similar to that of Diablo 3, but the RPG elements are more of Diablo 2. Again, best of both worlds in my opinion. The other thing I loved about Diablo 4 beta was the bosses. The boss fights were unique. There was different objectives of how you beat a boss. There was different elements to each boss fight, which allowed the bosses to be fresh. You're not just spamming attacks without thinking. You actually have to strategize and think about how you're going to go about your business, especially if you're playing on hardcore mode where you die, you lose your character entirely. So there is more strategy involved when it comes to bosses, more mechanics than there was, especially than what there was in Diablo 3. So I give credit for that. Visually, the game looked great. It looked great. It sounded great. The skills felt impactful. It played great. I'm personally stoked. There is a couple of things that I didn't like about Diablo 4. And one of the ones that I didn't like was, for some reason, when the game transitions from gameplay to cutscene, specifically in-game cutscene, the frame rate drops to 30 frames per second regardless of what your rig is. Now, I don't know if that will be fixed upon full release, but for the beta, you would go to a cutscene from gameplay, and in my case, I was hitting 150 frames per second max settings, no problem, and then I get a cutscene, it's 30 frames. And there's no settings to adjust that, that's just the way it is. So I'm really curious to see if they change that. I didn't like that frame drop because I didn't notice it, but it is what it is. That was like the only real issue I had in my experience playing this beta. Diablo 4, in terms of optimization, at least on PC, it ran like a dream. The only other issue I had was, now I don't know if this was pertaining to the servers or pertaining to just like my rig configuration or what have you, is that I did experience crashes where the game would just crash completely. And then I'd have to reload in. Now, thankfully, if you loaded in quick enough, you were just back where you were. But it did happen often enough that it was annoying. So hopefully they get that ironed out. But aside from that, the game ran perfect. It ran flawlessly. When I was in the game, it was playing great. Never experienced any bugs or anything like that. Just the crashes, and then the frame rate drops when it goes to cutscenes. But overall, this was a very good experience. And one of the other things I want to touch on was the controller. I played both keyboard and mouse, and I did play the controller as well. And the one thing I'll give credit is that the controller played really, really well. I actually grew on me and I started playing it more with controller just because it felt great to me. And this is a contrast from Diablo 2. Now I understand that Diablo 2 Resurrected, they basically built that remake on top of the original game, so controller input wasn't as good as it could have been in that game because it wasn't built natively. But for Diablo 4, the controls were fantastic. I didn't have any issue playing with controller. There's pros and cons to both. Obviously, with the keyboard and mouse, you get the direct teleport if you want to teleport to a certain spot, or you want to move inventory items. It was easier with a keyboard and mouse, but the controller gameplay was really, really good, and it allowed for a much more relaxed experience because you don't have to constantly flick all over the place with a mouse like you do with keyboard and mouse. But overall, this beta has gotten me pumped for the full release. I can't wait to play Diablo 4 when it launches. I didn't have any server issues during this beta. I was able to get in, no queue time, nice and easy. It was a great experience overall. I'm looking forward to the full release. I can't wait to see it. So hopefully June 2nd doesn't take forever to come here, and we can get more Diablo 4. This is Veteran Gamer, and I hope to see you guys next time.